Well, I think it makes sense it all comes down to the point that you should decide the aspect ratio you want to film or take photos in as you're shooting and not afterwards. Kind of. Because if you do, you will frame differently. If you already kind of have frame guides and are working for those as you are shooting, you will frame better because you will make different creative decisions.
What's new in filmmaking technology this week? News, reviews, education, insights, opinions, and ideas from the CineD newsroom with Nino Leitner and Johnny Bahiri. This is Focus Check, the weekly Cinetech podcast.
Welcome to episode 63 of CineD Focus Check. Welcome, Johnny.
Hello, Nino. How are you?
All fine. And you?
I'm well. It was a little bit of a quiet week, but this is before the big storm next week. Next week, guys, is going to be extremely busy. Wait and see. But
with announcements.
Well, yes. Man.
We're working on a lot of reviews in the background, so can't tell more, but next week is going to be an interesting show. But this week too, so I'm just going to run through what we're going to talk about today. So first of all, we ran a poll on filming vertically, and we're just going to share some observations here and also dive into the comments because it's very interesting. So we asked if you guys are actually filming vertically and for what purpose. That's a very interesting discussion. Related to that, we ran an article on aspect ratio control for everyone. That's kind of an opinion piece by Omri. We'll talk about that. Next, we'll talk about, we can't avoid the tariff topic here, unfortunately, because now it also affects movies that, well, it's supposed to affect, might affect, yeah. As always with those things. Films produced outside of the US. That's the next topic. And then we'll talk about the virtual lens technology by ZEISS, which was just announced on Wednesday this week, or actually Tuesday this week. Very, very interesting development relating to some of the stuff we talked about here on the show before. We'll talk about the new TTArtisan 35mm lens with dual bokeh, which is a very innovative thing and also relating to something we reported about before. We'll talk about our new MZ course, Get Me Started with Adobe Premiere Pro by Digby Hogan, an Australian post-production expert that already has a very long course on Premiere on our platform, and now it's a starter course. We'll talk about a new budget lens from Canon, the RF75-300, absolutely entry-level lens that we'll mention, and some updates from Blackmagic Design for both DaVinci Resolve 20, the Beta 3, and also firmware updates to their cameras with some new features. And last but not least, we're going to mention our CineD Best of Show Awards at CineGear 2025, and we'll talk about you going there with a team from CineD, of course, to cover the show in Los Angeles in actually just less than 4 weeks.
Yeah, it's really time is flying, unbelievably flying fast. Yeah,
and I'll go to BILD Expo from in New York City from B&H. That's an educational event / a little bit exhibition, but mostly educational event. I'm very happy to do a talk there, but we'll talk about that at the end.
Sure, but are you a frequent flyer already? Because it sounds like you're flying the whole time.
I used to be like a senator, whatever it's called, but so I'm quickly building up that the miles again.
Yeah.
Anyway, but let's get started with the poll. So we asked people, are you filming vertically? And that is something we ran last week. And the questions we asked are, I film vertically, but only for reels. I never film vertically. The entire concept of filming 9x16 is not clear to me. And I film vertically occasionally, and I love it. And I think it's fair to say that it's kind of like an even split between people who like it and do it and the others who don't.
Never, yeah, exactly. Actually, it's quite an interesting question when you think about it, because we see a lot of the younger generation simply... Everybody's holding their mobile phones like this. Always drives me crazy, especially when they film video. But I think when we are running kind of I would say by now, a really successful Instagram account. And of course, we do a lot of reels. And those reels needs to be filmed vertically. And it's kind of, at the beginning was the question, how should we do this? Horizontally, like we are used to as filmmakers. And then cut to a vertical aspect ratio, or already shoot vertically to start with. And I think very quickly we realized that for Instagram, for Reels, you have to shoot vertically if you want to do it well because of the framing and lighting and everything to do with in between. But we were really curious to know how our audience are using their equipment and how much they do actually shoot vertically, because so many of the camera companies are actually spending money and time in order to allow us either to really shoot vertically, meaning when you hold the mirrorless camera in video mode already to see what you see is what you get, or, and this is something that I like very much like with Panasonic, for example, you can shoot horizontally, but you can, with many of the modern camera, you can see the grid itself. So you can frame nicely. You can have a 9:16 grid and so on. And actually some of the answers we got are quite, the comments are also interesting. And of course, maybe one of the things that, maybe an option that we didn't add here was literally filming in open gate. And this is also something that not so many camera manufacturers are allowing us to do, because if you shoot already 4:3, like an open gate,
3:2,
3:2, sorry, that means that we can literally reframe while editing. Yeah.
Well, I think it's I think I see this with a lot of colleagues who shoot a lot of commercial stuff. I mean, it's really become the norm that when you shoot anything commercial, that the client usually wants, even if it's a normal commercial, they always will also do a real version of that, and that means you also need to frame for vertical. In many cases, I know from my own experience, that means actually repeating a shot also vertically. Sometimes, very often, it doesn't mean that you actually are mounting the camera vertically. It just means that you are framing wider, so you can crop in. And of course, I mean, in general, it means like if you are framing for vertically but shooting horizontally, you kind of need to shoot much wider than you would to. Like if you are aiming, if I would shoot a close-up of you for a vertical video, it would still be a wide horizontal shot, right? It doesn't matter if it's open gate or 16:9. It's kind of, like you need to be wide. And yeah, I mean, that's, I think, what a lot of people do for commercial stuff. I think it's not so much a topic for documentary and all that stuff that just is traditional horizontal still. But in commercial filming is very, very much the norm. I mean, but yeah, sometimes a lot of people only produce now for vertical because we have more and more brands just, like doing really high budget campaigns directly for Instagram and TikTok, and then this will be the norm. Yeah,
but at least it's nice to see that when you look at the results, you can easily see that people at least are using vertical filming for real. So it's not really suddenly that we have a whole bunch of whatever type of content that shot vertically. So it's either for a purpose, which is always the best. If you have the purpose, shoot for that purpose, or they never filmed vertically.
There's one very good comment that I just want to point out from Vico Ugetto. I just want to read it out because I think there's some very smart thoughts in there. Vertical is a trend caused by the ergonomics of the phone and the fact that Instagram forces users to do reels in 9:16. I'm also a photographer, so I'm pretty comfortable with vertical shooting. The problem with video is that I can't do it like in photography, switching orientation as the subject requires. Most of the time, vertical video sucks. For people, close-ups and interviews or tall objects is even better than horizontal, but 97% you get a lot of dead space at the top and the bottom. That's very true, especially if you want to do a wide shot. Don't forget that we generally organize the space with a horizontal view in mind. A stage, a table, a room, a car, a landscape, a group of people, sports, etc. Get better framing in horizontal because our vision is horizontal. Remember that a horizontal video can become vertical, but not otherwise. There's a lot of good thoughts in there because that's very true, right? You can shoot horizontally and you can crop it to vertically in most cases, unless it's a real close-up. Like if you shoot a close-up of anything, whether a human or an object, you almost have to do like pan and scan, right? Animate if you need to crop in there. But yeah, he's right. I think, our eyes are kind of organized horizontally. So like our vision is kind of horizontal. So of course you get a lot of dead space, either a lot of floor or a lot of sky when you shoot, like wide shots outside, for example. But of course, like showing a human talking, of course it's good if it's vertical, right? Because it's just, you can get a full shot of somebody.
But the thing is, if we take the whole concept of thinking one step farther, of course, when those mobile phones were introduced, and that's where it's coming from, holding the phone in a very natural way and film. The thing is that I see this all the time. I mean, I guess if you have parents and you went to any event from your kids, all the dads and moms are holding the camera like this. But me, sorry, but I'm still holding it like this, thinking that one day, if I'll get to the point of editing anything and please my wife and say, hey, finally we have something from our family gatherings or events, it can fill up the whole screen. The thing is, maybe this is something that we need somehow, how to bridge those, because if you will start to watch everything that you shot 5 years from now on a normal screen, everything is going to still be vertical, and of course the space in the sides will be dead. So maybe there's some...
I have a personal story to share on this. Actually, last week, I was in Amsterdam. I was there for a sad reason because, anyway. But there was I made a video about an edit about the person who
passed away, and was a relative of my wife, and both my wife's sister and me, the last time we saw her, she was always kind of waving from the balcony, and we knew it would probably, like the last time we were there, probably the last time we see her. So my wife's sister filmed that, and I filmed it. I filmed this horizontally, and she filmed it like 3 weeks later vertically because she's not a filmmaker. So I put both of those after each other in the film, and it's like you're saying, right? We are still in this mindset of shooting horizontally, and everybody else who's not in our industry or whatever considers them a filmmaker, basically. They would film vertically, and it's like I literally cut them after each other because it was kind of interesting that we did the same at the end of the film, that we did the same shot but filmed it differently, weeks apart. And same with like a recent birthday party of my 4-year-old boy. Like you said, I gathered the footage I filmed, and then also some people who were at the party filmed, and almost everybody else was filming vertically. I was the only one filming horizontally. Yeah, so maybe this is something to think of, how to make it a bit different, but actually we can benefit from both worlds, meaning still hold a mobile phone in this case in a way that is easy, but maybe shoot horizontally somehow.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, I mean, there's some really, really good comments here and ideas about everything and how to do it best. Like you said, a lot of people are suggesting shooting open gate if your camera allows you to do that. And actually, let's move on to the next topic because it's related to that. So we had an article by Omri on basically calling for aspect ratio control for everyone.
Yeah. First of all, I'm very thankful that Omri is picking up those subjects. I mean, he really into this democratizing everything, which means everybody those days can do everything, and it's just a matter of highlighting how much you can do. But that time, Omri picked up an interesting topic because many of the cameras that we are using many of them, if you think about it, can still mainly film in 16:9. So I think the idea came up after Omri saw Fujifilm's GFX100 RF, and that camera on the photo mode, you can really choose between 4:3, 3:2, 65:24, 17 to 16, 16:9. You can really choose so many aspect ratio
with a dial.
Really so easy. You don't even have to dive into the menu. Literally do different photo aspect ratio, which is, there is of course always a creative saying in this. There's a reason why you or anyone will choose taking photos in this way. And knowing that 16:9 or 17:9 is still the aspect ratio that we are using. Omri is raising the question. I mean, imagine if we would have something like this in video, meaning already to film in a certain aspect ratio. So again, we are back to the basic question: what is the easiest? Either to allow us open gate and then cut according to a certain need, or already shoot for a certain purpose. Yeah, I mean, this is a bit tricky. It's almost like, how should I film, with color or without, and let myself color grade later. But I think it's interesting topic because, of course, as Omri is writing, the world is wider than 16:9, and many of us are part of expression and also be unique. We are looking for ways to not only take photos but also take videos in a way that will grab attention.
Well, I think it makes sense to, I mean, it all comes down to the point that you should decide the aspect ratio you want to film or take photos in as you're shooting and not afterwards. Kind of. Because if you do, you will frame differently. If you already kind of have frame guides and are working for those as you are shooting, you will frame better because you will make different creative decisions. However, and that is a big difference between video and photo, of course, we are constrained by the screens that the content we have is displayed on. And most of those screens are simply 16:9 or a little bit, actually 16, a lot of them are actually 16:10 also, but like the computer screens very often. And in the old days, of course, 4:3, but most of them are basically 16:9. So even if you decide to go wider, you will always have a lot of black space. And that is just something you have to plan for. And especially as so many of us are shooting for small screens, if you are going wider than 16:9, and that's, of course, a lot of people are aware of, you are giving up a lot of space on already small screens. So you are displaying the content you are making even smaller.
Yes, but somehow because we are used to see wide screen or wider screen is always associated with cinema look.
Absolutely, yeah.
So there are some pluses to do this. I would like to see two things. I would love to see manufacturers going the Lumix way, meaning allowing us to have overlays in different frame sizes, so it's easy to reframe. That's one thing. And the second thing, going the Fujifilm way, but also for video. If you decide to already film in a certain aspect ratio, out of the box, understanding the consequences, but that will be also allowed to do. And that will be really nice. And I think most of the processors inside cameras those days are able to do so. Yeah. And if the manufacturer doesn't want to allow us this, maybe OpenGate is the answer here. So at least you know that you're getting a full 3:2 aspect ratio, the entire sensor, and then do whatever you want with it later in editing.
Well, I think in general, as shooting becomes more democratized, that everybody can shoot great looking video, with almost every camera. It's like a recurring subject that we keep talking on because we see this constantly as a trend in technology, that it just simply becomes more accessible. I think it also means that if you find your niche with what you do, you will be doing well, right? Still down the road. And that niche can be specializing in something specific. And that's why people are trying to differentiate. Some are shooting anamorphic. Some are, but even purpose, I kind of like, if you find, for example, there are wider screens than 16:9, right? Like computer screens, for example. Like if you have a client, if you're a corporate or commercial filmmaker, and we see more and more of the production moving kind of like away from production companies and more kind of, or actually done by production companies that are also doing the creative work, which has really become the norm. Yeah. And I see more and more agencies kind of like also diving into how showrooms are designed, right? So you can actually as a creative, help make decisions what kind of screens are going to end up at the point of sale, for example. And if you are in some way, able to pitch to your commercial clients that, like I can shoot something wide that looks amazing, but you will need specific screens, right? You just invest in those screens that are wider than that can actually augment everything quite a bit. And it's the same. I mean, it also goes down to, the virtual reality stuff, whether it's you put on, whether it's the Meta glasses or the Apple Vision Pro, whatever. If you produce for that too, you can probably find point of sale solutions that are giving people unique view on the product or an experience that nobody else can shoot or few others. So I think if you find your niche and you specialize on it, I think it's easier than it used to be before to also kind of have a say in how things are displayed at the end users, because at the end of the day, everybody can shoot great video now. And if you are able to differentiate yourself, whether you're as a shooter but also as a brand, you will do well, I think. And just as a rule of thumb, basically, try to find your niche, and also with the aspect ratios and the style of shooting, of course, and that's part of it. We'll be back after this message from our sponsor.
1 Minute Tips by Fujifilm and CineD, another part of our series on film set roles. The director of photography, or DP, is the chief of camera and lighting, the person translating the director's vision into the visuals. They choose the camera, lenses, lighting setups, and framing to craft the look and mood of the film. The DP works closely with the camera team, the gaffer, the key grip, the hair and makeup departments, the wardrobe departments, and sometimes also the on-set VFX teams. Basically everything that affects what the camera sees. A great DP needs to think both technically and emotionally and be able to translate story, emotion, and tone into objective direction for the other department heads. The DP is also in charge of maintaining the visual consistency and ensuring that every shot feels cohesive within the visual language of the project. The DP is essentially the bridge between the creative vision and technical execution. Stay tuned for more film role breakdowns. 1 Minute Tips. Until next time.
And now back to the show.
Okay, Nino, what next?
So let's talk about those tariffs. So
how do we talk about tariffs without diving into politics? Because we are not a political site. Politics is not our agenda. On the other hand, it's always hurting to see when somebody's hurting our industry.
Yeah. So I mean, it's a.
So what's the topic first of all? I mean, somebody woke up in the morning. A certain gentleman woke up in the morning and decided, I have a new idea.
Exactly. Like every day he has a new idea, and I posted on social media that Trump posted on social media that he wants a 100% tariff on films produced outside of the US. Now that immediately raises questions. Well, why is that? Of course, everything with also the tariffs that are already in place or proposed and constantly changing are basically on
goods, basically
on goods, with the goal that to insource more production into the US again. And now with products, it's a little bit more straightforward because you know exactly what's coming through the border, and that simply gets taxed, and then people,
shall we say, not justified but clear,
pay more for stuff. With the hope and goal that more production will simply move inside to the US, but which is not so easy, of course. But in this case, of course, I mean, let's just look at what's happened. So we know that Los Angeles is in a crisis because a lot of production that used to be in California is moving, especially not only other states in the US, but also abroad because of tax incentives. So a lot, and that is where this proposal actually comes from. So you have a lot of countries in Europe, especially Eastern Europe, but also Central Europe,
also Canada in the
Canada,
North America,
Mexico, and so on, that are giving tax breaks. If you are spending a certain amount of money of your production there, they actually get cash back. I mean, the simplest system basically is like, if you spend $100 in somewhere, some of these countries offer like 25 of those dollars back. So basically you spend $100 on the production for everything, like hotel rooms, the production itself, whatever. The government will actually give you back 25 of those.
A lot of money. Yeah.
And that, of course, is an incentive that means for those super expensive productions to actually go and shoot in a different country if they have the infrastructure, meaning they have the facilities, the studios. They also have the staff, because of course they cannot move all of the staff from the US. They will need especially the craftspeople will be local, and with the added benefit for the productions, of course, that they very often do not have to abide by those very strict union rules, the very strong unions in Los Angeles that are actually guaranteeing a certain amount of payment and work, like reasonable hours for the people. So that's kind of a way for them to avoid. Now, the irony of this proposal is that most of the productions that are actually benefiting from that are American companies, right? The big giant studios are mostly American, and they are the ones
to initiate.
They are the ones that are actually moving abroad. So I guess the whole proposal is aimed at those companies, forcing them to kind of bring production back to the United States. Like the money still goes through the US, right? I mean, that's because those are American productions, but they are spending it abroad. So what I think the whole intention is to bring that money back. Now, the thing is, it's not as simple, right? If you look at an average movie and you look at the credits, you will see that a lot, very often, of course, the principal photography is now not in the US. It might be in Canada, or it might be, like we said, in Mexico, or somewhere like in Hungary, for example, or Czech Republic. But then, some additional photography will be in the US, and you will have visual effects that are, I don't know, maybe in Asia or some, like all over the world. So the question is, how do you actually measure this? Like this tariff thing, you can't put a tariff on a service in a way. I mean, you can try to, but how are you going to decide? Like, is it going to be if the majority of the money is actually spent abroad? Is it it's not so easy, like with, if I put a tariff on aluminum that's imported into US, very easy, because everything that goes through the border, it simply gets, like slap on 100%. That's fine. Not fine, but it's like
clear how to do this.
It's clear how to do this. Oops. And for this, it's a bit more difficult. So
I'm concerned about something else. Every time that our industry shows a sign of getting up and trying to do something after some, it can be a strike, it can be the corona, whatever. Every time there's signs of recovery, there is something that comes and go boof on the head and bring the whole thing down again. And anyway, this is a very challenging time.
I think it's a perfect storm of things, right? I mean, you have all these strikes, you had the COVID, you have the general economic downturn that's kind of happening, and now you have this. The question is how much this will move into reality. We know from the other tariffs that only part of them are actually in place, especially to China. But with everything else he says, you don't know if it's actually happening.
The other issue is that, for example, let's take the tariffs on goods. Even if tomorrow this will not happen, I think companies are learning the lesson. They are coming to the conclusion that they cannot be or feel like hostages in the hand of America, because you never know when the next thing will come. So some of them are already preparing simply to avoid such situations. It's very costly for those companies. We know it firsthand from companies that we're in contact with. But it's so many companies. It's not a single company. But they really have to think how to do stuff, how to shift stuff, where to move production to, simply because they can't consider there is no safety. And you need, for that type of business, you need consistency, you need safety, you need assurance that you can do the business. And again, we are not running into justified or not justified. The thing is that some of the major companies in our industry are simply losing faith in the sense of, is there some rational thinking here or what's going on? And I'm afraid that will be the same here, because if production companies will come to the conclusion that they cannot rely anymore on have a stable background, and in order to perform and produce, they will already try to avoid it to start with. And I really wonder if this is literally shooting in the leg eventually. And again,
well, you're limping with the left leg and you're shooting yourself on the right one at the same time. That's what's happening, because it's all the constant flip-flopping that's actually the problem.
Exactly. So,
because it's creating uncertainty. And like you said, I mean, it's going to be hard to avoid Hollywood studios, right? I mean, that's where the money comes from for production. But they right now are just confused. I mean, you see it in the reaction or the lack of a reaction. Actually, the Motion Picture Association declined to comment. And insiders say studios and streamers are scrambling to understand the legal basis and potential scope of the proposed tariffs. And then we had California Governor Gavin Newsom, who recently actually announced that there are going to be new tax incentives in California to bring some production back to California. Again, he responded that calling the announcement another baseless and legally impossible stunt. And he said that Trump lacks the authority to unilaterally impose such tariffs, and describes the plan as an economic malpractice that could further destabilize a struggling entertainment economy. So we'll see. I mean, it's probably it feels like another thing that, you know, like he came up in the early morning and just posted, and then it might never happen, because at the end of the day, like you said, I think it's actually going to hurt American business more than anybody else. I understand the intention to bring production back to California in general. I think is a good one, right? We have they need to find ways to make it more attractive to shoot there again. And I don't think this is one of the ways to do it.
But anyway, instead, imagine that the amount of energy, money, and resources that might go into legal stuff instead of just producing. But let's just follow this, and a year from now, see where we are.
Good. Let's move on to some gear news again. So, remember we talked about this before, and I mentioned this in this article. So ZEISS just announced that they are demoing a technology right now. FMX is happening in Stuttgart, which is a big visual effects trade show that's been there forever. I remember going there once when I was still studying. So it's all about VFX, and they are announcing a new technology that is allowing people to have virtual lenses. So we all know they purchased NCAM a couple of years ago, and that turned into their whole, what is it called? Sorry, I have to look it up. Sorry, Cinecraft, yeah. We all remember that ZEISS purchased NCAM a couple of years ago, which kind of gave them a leg into the VFX industry, kind of connecting their optical technology with virtual effects. I think very smart move on their part, because of course knowing that a lot of the future can be in software. And that evolved into the Cinecraft ecosystem, which is really there to help visual effects artists kind of connect the real world shooting with what's happening in VFX.
But in reality, what does it mean? I mean, you still need a lens, and I guess ZEISS want them to use their lenses. But then what? Virtual reality or whatever production. What is this technology? What is?
Well, they're saying so. The problem with VFX in general is sometimes there is a disconnection between the real shooting on set with actual lenses and what happens in VFX. So basically, you're using a specific lens on set, and then in post-production, you of course need to create the visual effects that are composited into those shots. The problem is very often, of course, that is just an approximation of the look of a lens, because they don't actually know, like the VFX program doesn't actually know what the lens bokeh really looks like. So what ZEISS did is they actually measured all of their, at least Cine lenses, I think, and now you're able to kind of fake the look.
The background too, you mean? Like when
it knows exactly what a lens looks like, what each of one of their lenses look like. So you basically have a shot like this, and if you're watching the video version of this, you will see a deep focus shot of an eagle close-up with a starry background. Everything is in focus. That's a composited image, of course. And if you apply their new sensor virtual lens technology, you are getting the look of a Supreme Prime 50mm at f1.4 and you can exactly define the focus distance, and you will get the bokeh and fall off of that specific lens. And you can just change it in post. And that's
interesting. Do you know if that can be done only with their own lenses for now, or they can mimic other lenses if the movie was shot with not with ZEISS lenses?
It's a technology demonstration right now. It's not in an actual product yet, but I'm sure they will just simply start with their own lenses. They probably will license this, license other lens looks. I don't know how that will work, because of course it will make sense to have all of that inside. I reached out to them asking them, because we talked about this before on I don't know which episode of this podcast, where I said that basically what we need is like in the future, sensors will be light sensitive enough that you will be able to shoot everything with a phone, for example, at like a small sensor, which basically has deep focus. Almost everything is in focus unless something is a macro or whatever. And you shoot everything with a small sensor, and then this cinematic mode that you have on iPhones, but also Android phones, of course, that you will be able to choose the different look, right? I mean, you will not, of course, with cropping, you might even have to be able to change the focal length, but you will be able to apply different lens looks just by selecting like a filter. And if those are based on actual lenses, like in this case, of course, that's cool. I mean, you can literally have a set of lenses built into your camera, phone, whatever it will be.
For me, this technology is interesting. And sorry, guys, I have to talk about AI. Not replacing actors this time, but if we want to use real actors and actresses and use AI for the background instead of a very expensive VFX, then I think this technology can work, because imagine if you can feed AI to build the background with certain look of a lens in mind. I think that can, the same one that you literally film the real actor. So that will give the same like homogenic picture. Interesting.
Yeah, and there's back to your question, if this is only for ZEISS lenses. So actually, it's currently in development, and it's going to be part of their expanding SyncCraft ecosystem, which already includes tools like, they call it a SyncCraft mapper for lens distortion and shading data, and SyncCraft Scenario, which is a real-time camera tracking system for virtual production. ZEISS is building this on their own lenses, but it's not going to be limited to ZEISS glass, because users will be able to create and apply custom lens looks and even layer enhancements for stylized results. So basically, you'll be able to
business decisions.
So I guess maybe this will also, if I was another lens manufacturer and people are using SyncCraft, I would definitely, add I contribute my own lenses to that.
Exactly.
And make a lot of sense, of course. Yeah. So,
And by the way, you can license it to ZEISS, and then whatever production is using it, you can get royalties, I guess. So it's not that this company will lose any money, or it's just.
It depends what the kind of product will be, what they come out with. But yeah, of course, it makes sense that you buy like the Cook look as an add-on, for example, even maybe individual lenses, and then there's some money for Cook there. I don't know. But yeah, this will include focus fall-off, cat-eye bokeh, chromatic aberration, field curvature, and geometric distortion. They're really faithfully recreated frame by frame and not approximated. So should make a big difference for VFX. Shall
we move and talk about real lenses? Just to
Yes. Let's talk about the TTArtisan 35mm T2.1 Cine lens with dual bokeh. What does that mean?
First of all, I'm always happy to see some innovation in lenses, because somehow it feels that everybody. Actually, in the other day, I saw my mom making lenses in the kitchen, and I said, "Mama, what are you doing?" She said, I want to do lenses.
Want to be part of it.
Exactly. That's how it feels. Yeah, and of course, the competition is really fierce, and I'm even a little bit concerned about some of very established lens manufacturers that maybe they will stop being competitive unless they innovate. So here we see an innovation, but there's a bit of kind of something here, a bit of concern. This innovation, you can literally change the bokeh. You can change between bubble and soft bokeh. And I think in the video, if you're watching the video, it's working, and it's very nice to see that depending on your need or whatever background you want, especially if there's a lot of lights, you can play with that. So it gives you more control.
So how does it work? How do I change that look?
You just move. You literally move. There's a little knob at the back of the lens, and it just says bubble and soft, and that's all you have to do. That's from, of course, I mean, technically, it's not that I really have
so it's kind of detuning it in a way.
Exactly. So now you used the word detuning, and this is connecting me to something that we already saw at NAB 2023. And if you remember, there was a Model 8, and this company, part of Moment, if I'm not wrong, came out with the tuner. And this tuner was actually a variable look lens adapter. It's literally did something same but different, meaning the idea here was to give more like take certain lenses and try to apply the look of those lenses to lenses that you already have by detuning the look.
So like a filter, basically?
It was a very interesting, or it is a very interesting concept. The only thing here which I thought is an issue was the price, because some of those Model 8 tuning adapters can cost $2,500. So of course that's not for everyday use, or I mean, sorry, it's not for every user to buy those, because it's rather expensive.
Is it a universal thing you can apply to every lens, or?
Yeah, the Model 8 was you can apply to any lens. That was the idea. It's simply an adapter, but of course with the TTArtisans, and I'm always not to be confused with 7 artisans.
That's a specific lens.
That's a specific lens,
mil.
and I hope to see more lenses, at least on the path of this innovation. Very nice. Very. Yeah. This is something different that we have to maybe take a closer look and see how it's working. But yeah, very nice.
Actually, it might be a good. I mean, if this is possible, maybe they, like a company can do this to their anamorphic lenses. We've seen a lot of those Chinese anamorphic companies that have like silver bokeh, gold bokeh, neutral bokeh. I always
streaks. You mean?
Yeah.
But this we have already.
I always hated that you needed different lenses.
But this you have, if I'm not mistaken, Laura is allowing you to
really?
change the color of streaks and the light streaks, and that was also quite innovative. Yeah. Good.
Let's move on to a little bit of news from MZ. Actually, we recently launched a new course, and that is a Get Me Started with Adobe Premiere Pro. Now, this is by Digby Hogan, who already, like if you are a subscriber to MZ or have been before, he already did a 25-hour course on Premiere.
But there is so much to talk about.
There is so much. He's going through everything. Like if you're interested in learning,
maybe
really
I can find some answers.
Premiere. But the thing was, of course, 25-hour course is kind of daunting. So like we talked to him, and he actually worked on a short 1-hour course, and that's really a starter's course for Premiere Pro. Now, if you know Digby, he's a really fun guy. I mean, his teaching style is very light and entertaining, I would say. So if you're interested in that course is now available on MZ Pro as part of the subscription. And
or separately too, no?
Not yet, but we'll add it also as a separate purchase. Now, he's also working on 2 more courses for us. And one of them, the next one, I think will be about After Effects. We don't have an After Effects course yet. So if you're, and that's also getting started with After Effects. So it's really targeted at kind of filmmakers that are not VFX artists per se, but want to do some stuff. And we are, working on that right now. This is going to be online, I think, within the next couple of weeks as well. And that's just really a starter's course for After Effects to dive into visual effects. But this one, so is available now. And check it out. I'll put the link in the show notes as well. Very, very entertaining. So basically going through all the basics. If you're, just really getting started with editing, this is the course to actually watch. Good. Let's move on to some more lenses, actually.
It's nice to see that Canon is moving on with their plan to enhance the RF line of lenses. And this time they're bringing the 75-300 f4 to 5.6. It's a budget telephoto lens. So, what do you think about this lens?
Well, the thing is, I mean, we've talked about this before, that one of the problems that Canon has with the RF mount is that compared to Sony, they have many less lenses available because they started so late with the mount, and they decided to focus on high-end lenses first. So a lot of the RF lenses that are in the market are very, very good lenses, but also heavy and expensive. And I think they've started to realize that, and recently they've really tried to expand into a more budget-friendly options as well. And this is one good example. I mean, this actually looks like the adaptation of an old EF lens from 1999. Yeah. So, which got kind of mixed reviews, to be fair. So it's not going to be the best lens out there, but it's of course very, very versatile with 7300. It's f4 to 5.6, so a bit slow. But it costs only
that's exactly
like $300, something like that. It's very cheap. Yeah, so it can be your backup lens, even if you're a pro. If you need the odd long telephoto lens, that's something you can use, and that's it. Yeah, it's nothing special. It's not gonna knock you out of the park in terms of look.
€300 in Europe,
but it's gonna make that. Yeah, for some reason it doesn't have a US price yet, which might be related to the tariffs. But it's gonna be €300 in Europe. So yeah, and then let's move on to an update from Blackmagic Design. So they have been busy again by releasing another beta update, the beta, like a third beta, public beta of DaVinci Resolve 20. We did a long interview at NAB about all the features in DaVinci Resolve 20. A lot of them are, like also relating to AI-aided functions, a lot to do with, helping you edit, helping you transcribing and all that kind of stuff.
It's interesting, though, that some AI things are being accepted by people and others are really like...
Well, we're actually working, and I think I mentioned it before, we're working on an MZ course specifically about making you a more efficient filmmaker and using all those functions in the NLEs, because I think people are having a hard time, having an overview of all those functions that are there. And I think a lot of people are still doing things the old way because they don't know how it's done more efficiently now. And there is a lot of things specifically to do with transcription, translation, and also masking. So we're working on small courses about those specific topics now for the different NLE systems, including DaVinci Resolve, going through everything and showing you how it's done now. But so basically, this new beta update gives improvements for multi-text layers, the curves editor, and also some audio sync issues. It's now, they're really working on having the different pages in DaVinci Resolve interact with each other better, because there seem to be some bugs there, some of which I also noticed when I tried it. For users of the studio version, there is now better subtitle animation for complex characters like in Chinese and Thai languages. So it's like, the depth of sophistication in this software is just mind-boggling, to be honest. Like, once you dive in, it's crazy, and you can really see how they are responding very quickly to user demands if you are on the Blackmagic forums with every beta update. Now is the time to give them feedback. If you are a beta user, you will get replies from them on the forums, and they will really try to work almost in real time on fixing stuff.
Yeah, one thing is really missing for me, and this is I would love to have a Johnny family mode when I just throw my videos inside and it will just edit everything and I don't have to worry. It's not there yet, not? Maybe on beta 99.
Automatic editing, well, there are some functions for that, but I don't know about the results, to be honest. Let's try it. Yeah, and the other update we got from Blackmagic Design is firmware updates for their cameras. Specifically, there was a 951 and 952 firmware update for their cameras. Now, it's a bit confusing. They always call this Blackmagic camera, when in reality it's a software for
the phone.
Yeah, it sounds like the iOS and Android app, but it's not. It's basically the firmware update for the cameras, which gives you a bit more functionality. So they're working hard on enhancing the Cine line. And for example, you're getting better image performance for open gate recording on the Cine 17K, which is now starting to be shipped.
So if you have this camera, don't forget to update. You're gonna have better image quality.
Yeah. Improved clip playback and faster focus scale readouts. If you are, they have like the focus scale measure, like showing on displays there, and they're working hard on making those cameras better. There was also right after 9.5.1, they pushed update 9.5.2, which is specific to the Blackmagic Cinema Camera 6K, and according to Blackmagic Design, fixes an occasional issue where CF Express cards are not recognized on some cameras. So you understand why they immediately pushed that, because that's a huge issue, of course. So you should update your Blackmagic Cinema Camera 6K. Confuses me a little bit that the different cameras don't seem to have separate firmware updates. So this update would do nothing for the other cameras, so you probably are not even able to update it. But I mean, on the other hand, it's nice also that you don't have to go through different pages to see what camera gets what update. So basically, there's always one software, but it sometimes might only affect one camera. So just be aware of that when you. The 9.5.2 update will do nothing to your Cine camera, but it will do something to your Blackmagic Cinema Camera 6K. So just be sure to read out. But we try to stay on top of this with our news articles. If you follow the website, you should know everything you need to know. Okay, let's move on to CineGear.
Yeah, CineGear is just around the corner in 1 month time. We're going to be there full force, and we're going to experiment.
Well, I'm not there, so it is not.
You're going to support us from the office, and you're going to New York to BILD by B&H. So yeah, the idea is to run, of course, the normal interviews that we do, but what we really want to experiment this time is an enhancement of workflow from camera to cloud. We're gonna work with Fujifilm cameras like we usually do. Those are the main cameras that we're using when we are filming exhibitions. And Fujifilm, to the best of my knowledge, they were the first ones to implement Frame.io inside their cameras. So camera to cloud is kind of established in terms of the workflow. But we're gonna take it to the next level. This is something that we are experimenting, and we would love to see if we can actually help ourselves with some AI editing assistance. So again, this is not to replace anybody in terms of manpower that we're going to bring, but it's more to help us to organize the footage that we have, and this we will do with Eddy AI. And Eddy AI already exists, and of course you can visit their webpage and see what it does. But for what we want to do, we literally want to see if we can use Fujifilm cameras to upload to Frame.io, and then from Frame.io to move to Eddy AI, let Eddy AI help our editor to literally organize the B-roll and even do a rough cut of the actual interview, for example, and then be able to download the rough cut, either XML or literally the footage itself, do some tweaks whenever we need, and move on to the next thing. So we might do a little maybe behind the scenes mini documentary also to see how the conventional way of literally giving a card to our editor versus doing everything through the cloud. We are very curious to see if that's going to work out, because if it does, imagine that you're filming a convention, something very long, and you literally need to output something very fast to your client. So that's another way to do it. And of course, we know that during trade shows, we really want to try to be efficient. It's all about efficiency. We talked about efficiency before, without sacrificing the actual personnel that we are usually working with.
One thing to add here, and that's something our viewers, listeners might not know, we are very much always dependent on the trade show about the circumstances, meaning both NAB and IBC provide us with a press room. Like if you have a press pass, you have access to a very nice room with, like good internet connection, usually good internet connection, not always, but mostly this year, for example, NAB had a great internet connection and power, of course, and a place to sit down for people to work on content. Now, this is essential for, being able to output a lot of content during and after trade shows in time. Now with CineGear, that show traditionally has been mostly on the lot of studios. So it used to be at Warner Brothers, then it moved to Paramount. This year it's at Universal Studios. Unfortunately, still to this day, they don't offer a press room or media room. So basically, we have to work around that constriction. So that is something that is also, like either an editor needs to sit at a cafe, then they might not have
in the
internet
room,
connection or hotel. I'm just saying that this is an added difficulty for that specific trade show. Also, it's a very short show. I think it's
2 days.
The first day is it used to be at least just 7 hours or something. Yeah. And it's a very packed schedule. And then kind of moving the footage. So having an established camera to cloud workflow, if it works, will have a huge difference actually in getting stuff done. Because in the past, sometimes we simply, shot stuff and then edited in the evening there because you just couldn't do it during the day.
What we will try to do this time also, not to rely on any specific dedicated routers to upload the footage. I simply gonna have much more data, be able to do an eSIM with American company, whatever it is, that it's very easy, and really buy the biggest data plan that I can. I'm very curious to see if I can literally do it through the phone. Rely on.
Good luck.
Thank you very much. But let's see, because it's an open space.
Yeah,
and
a lot of people.
I'm really wondering how it's gonna look and if it's gonna work. And you know what? Even if it doesn't work 100%, I think it's an interesting exercise. This is something just to move a little bit out of our comfort zone. And I always say, if I don't spit blood or we don't spit blood, what's the fun here? So why to choose the easy way if we can do it a bit more difficult, but it's fun and it's challenging. And I think this is, I love the opportunity at least. Yeah. And in any case, please expect some nice content coming up from a bit before, but also CineGear. Some interesting announcements will be made also before and hopefully during the show. So please just be with us here, and we will of course keep you updated. Cool. But let's talk quickly about the nominations, because this is also new for us. It's the first time that we're doing Best of Show during CineGear. So if you are a manufacturer and you think that you have an amazing product to show us before or just before the show, please share it with us, and we will be happy to look at it. And because all those nominations for NAB, it was quite successful. I think there were some nice things actually.
And of course, we always abide by any embargoes. So even if it's unannounced products, you can submit them. We are going to have 8 award categories. That's audio equipment, AI innovation, battery innovation, camera control and accessories, lenses, lighting equipment, and streaming cloud technology. Yeah. So we reserve the right to change those categories, though, depending on the submissions. So if there are no submissions or nothing that we think is award worthy in a category, we might combine some categories and so on. But it really depends on how good the products are.
Yeah. But from now all the way to the end of May, June, and until September, when we will have IBC, is going to be extremely busy. And a lot
of new stuff is coming.
Yeah, I'm excited, because I know that some people will be really excited with what's coming up. And it's not a matter of, hey, look at us, we know and you don't know. It's just a matter of genuine excitement. And let's see how the audience will react to some of the stuff coming up.
Yeah. I'll be at B&H BILD Expo in New York City. That's going to happen at June 17th and 18th. At the Javits Center in New York. Now, this happened for the first time in 2023, and now it's the second time they're hosting it. Now, for a lot of people in New York, that was a big thing, because there used to be Photo Plus Expo in New York City, which was discontinued a couple of years ago, even before COVID times. So people were very excited to have a photo/filmmaking/creation related show come back to New York City, and also to the same place, to the Javits Center, in the center of Manhattan. So I'm very excited to go there. We've heard only good things about BILD Expo last time. Honestly, I mean, there were so many people that we talked to at IBC in 23 that were there. They were like, this was such a great event because it was not your traditional trade show. It was really an educational event, and B&H is doing such a great effort at putting a lot of really, really good talks and workshops on. So there's going to be 100+ speakers at this event. It's really going to be an educational event. A lot of really, really cool things, and people talking about filmmaking, photography stuff. You have, like I don't even want to mention a lot of names because you will know a lot of them that are going to speak there. And I'm very proud and happy that they also invited us. And I will host a talk there. And the talk that I'm going to host is going to be called Ready Creator One. And it's going to talk about what we just talked about efficient filmmaking in a shifting industry, basically exploring how you can transform your fear of AI into fuel and leverage AI to amplify rather than automate your artistic expression. So basically make what you make already better and more effectively. Also knowing that a lot of the work we do, all of us deem ourselves as artists, whatever, but we know that the artistry very often doesn't pay the bills. So a lot of the work you do is cumbersome, repetitive work, both in post-production, but even in pre-production and production. And I'm going to talk about some of the tools that can help you be more effective. And I'm not going to talk about, replacing your creativity with generative stuff. It's basically augmenting what you can already do with a lot of the tools that are out there and coming around. So that's going to be my talk. But there's, as I said, hundreds of other talks there. There's going to be a lot of workshops. There's also going to be exhibitions. So there's like 250 exhibitors, I think, are going to show stuff there. So you are having all the brands there as well. And I'm sure that just on the heels of CineGear, so you will see a lot of the stuff that's being announced during or around CineGear will move to New York City just 2 weeks later. So that's going to be exciting.
Interesting enough, we're already hearing about some companies who are actually, it's a matter of budget eventually. And when they have to choose between CineGear and BILD, some of them move to BILD. But I guess everybody is trying to see what's best for them in terms of exposure. Yeah,
I think it's definitely, if you're still thinking about a early summer, late spring trip to New York City, that's a good excuse to go. It's 2 days, June 17th and 18th at the Javits Center. It's free. We'll put the registration link in our show notes. Just sign up and stop by. It's 2 full day events. There's also going to be a lot of evening events that are kind of relating where people are. I like that, like they're really doing photo tours through New York City. There's like a cruise. There's a rooftop bar thing at the end. So they do a lot of stuff to also, like kind of make use of the most visual metropolis in the world, which is New York City. So that's pretty cool. Yeah. So
nice.
Very excited about that. Okay. Let's wrap it up here.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Johnny.
Thank you, Nino. And guys, thank you very much for joining us. We talked and covered quite a few topics. If you have an opinion, just want to share your, what you think about stuff from vertical filming to how to change the bokeh in your lens. And of course, anything that has to do with our MZ educational platform, just write. We are here.
Yeah. And don't forget to like and subscribe on all your favorite podcasting platforms, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, of course, and see you next week. Thanks.
Ciao.